And we're back with the Big Picture Rumble. I'm joined with Heather Sermo, the managing owner of the 440 Public Relations, Sam Bennett, president and CEO at the Women's Campaign Forum, and then there's Seton Motley, president of lessgovernment.org.
Copy and paste.
Hi, you're great, Seton. Back to it. The Congressional Budget Office is projecting a record-breaking $1.5 trillion deficit this year. The CBO originally projected dwindling deficits into the future until Republicans demanded an extension of tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires, and President Obama obliged, adding a nearly $900 billion unfunded obligation to the federal ledger last month. Look at this chart from the CBO on what the largest contributor is to our nation's structural deficits. 48% tax cuts, almost 5 times more expensive than all the entitlements together. So isn't this a clear case of how irresponsible tax cuts paid for by borrowing money from China contribute to our soaring debt? How long until the American people pick up on this lie, I would call it, being spread by Republicans, that tax cuts don't add to the deficit and that they're the party of fiscal responsibility? You know, we didn't have big deficits like this until Reagan came along with his tax cuts.
But there was the spending.
These tax cuts are tax cuts on top of the tax cuts.
There weren't tax cuts. There were extensions of the current rates.
You're 100% correct.
No,
the numbers speak for themselves.
No, they don't speak for themselves.
And why
that's a
did
static
Obama
analysis
back
pie.
away from this? Why did Obama back away from this? Well, he was held hostage.
I don't know, 60s plus Republicans in the House?
He was held
healthcare plan that he foisted upon everybody.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Stop.
In 1980, the revenue to the Treasury was $527 billion. In 1990, it was $1.12 trillion. The numbers
for themselves.
Yes, those numbers speak for themselves.
No.
The revenue to the Treasury doubled when Reagan cut taxes. The problem was Tip O'Neill and company were spending like drunken sailors, except it wasn't their money.
Stop. If you
and
look
second
at
of all,
See, let me just stop you right there.
$1 trillion
If you look at the last 30
that
years.
was required because of the
by what?
Bush's.
By Keynes?
Everyone has forgotten that Bush is the reason we got in this crazy situation.
No, it was Fannie Mac and Freddie Mac.
Please stop. It was Bush's policies that got us there in the first place.
It was a Community Reinvestment Act. It was Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae spreading poison paper throughout
He inherited a huge surplus.
And he dumped
I would like to hear Heather weigh in on this.
Well, all I can say is, I mean, you know, God forbid a president with the support of Congress give money back to the people. What a shame.
Not give it back. It's theirs.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Like giving it back to people.
China to give
to me, that is the best way to improve the economy.
Sorry.
People are asking for help with the economy.
Heather.
That's how you help the economy.
Heather.
Give people the money that they richly deserve.
We proved in the Reagan disaster that trickle-down economics just doesn't work. So you're only giving money to the wealthiest people. It did not work.
My closing comment on this is a graphic, and it's pretty straightforward. I'm not sure where we're going to show it here.
All right.
Oh, it's going full screen. There it is on the screen over here. The red is the Republican presidential, Reagan and Bush, and the blue is Clinton.
Under Clinton,
deficit went down,
amendment,
taxes
balanced, the cap on spending, cap on spending. This is not a revenue problem. This is a spending problem.
He rolled back tax cuts.
Not one Republican voted for that thing. In fact,
the balanced budget amendment.
No, for his tax increase.
That wasn't the reason.
Of course, that's the reason. As soon as the tax increase goes away, look at what happened to the deficit.
No, it was the balanced budget amendment. It was 96. It was the revolution in '94.
You know, there has never, in the last 30 years, there hasn't ever been more than a 1% variation between the budget the president proposes and how and what you end up with. So
that's not true.
You know, actually,
under Tip O'Neill, under Reagan,
I like how you make.
I've got the graphics for it.
I like this. This is fun.
Show you. But you know,
I make up stuff.
You make up stuff.
Yeah. No, I don't. Well, all right.
Liberals never let
I'm for the
facts
balanced budget amendment. Just have it back on the table.
Yes. Yeah. Liberals never let facts get in the way of a good beating.
Right.
Last question. In nearly simultaneous weeks, America was graced with highly publicized speeches from arguably the 2 most popular women within the GOP, Sarah Palin and Michelle Bachmann. Right. Unfortunately, their performances were largely panned. After all, Sarah Palin inexplicably invoked the word blood libel to portray herself as the victim in the Tucson tragedy, and Michelle Bachmann didn't seem to know which camera she needed to look at. Oh, yeah, okay. Excuse me. So, quick fire question. As both women seem poised for 2012 presidential runs, if you had to choose one to be on the ticket, who would it be? Bachmann or Palin?
And I just want to interject. A lot of the heat they took, and I would not vote for either one of them, was sexist. And I just want to interject. Heather, I don't know if you agree with me on that, but I think they took a lot of heat that a guy never would have taken. I don't agree with either one of them.
For what?
They as women, when they go out, our research shows this, that women face a very unfair media examination.
Sure.
That
well, Hillary
men don't.
got all kinds of stuff about her clothing and things that never would have been said about men.
Now, do I agree with either one of them?
Al
No.
Gore got it, too, with his Earth Tones. Al Gore and the Earth Tones, my favorite band. First of all, Michelle Bachmann was looking at the Tea Party camera, not the CNN camera, because that had a bigger audience. Second of all...
Which is an interesting metaphor. She's more committed to the Tea Party than
to CNN?
Than to America.
She's more committed to the American people than CNN.
Yeah.
Oh, please.
That's what you mean.
Tea Party represents American people much better than CNN.
They are both more committed to their own media presence than anything else. And I think they're both masters.
I think it's also...
Okay, so who do you pick?
masters.
Well, that's a politician, though, right?
Who are you taking for president in 2000?
Neither one of them.
Neither one of them.
No.
Either.
I'll be on record as saying
I don't think
that
they
is...
wanted to make the ticket.
No,
Yeah,
just on
I
a
think they
serious
play
note.
an important role.
I'm guessing.
But they are both leaders, definitely leaders. They have followers, and I will give them credit for
Okay,
that.
Mitt Romney's a odds-on favorite. He's got lots of.
He won't
bucks.
get it.
No.
Because of Obama.
He's
because
too
of Romney
much a
carrying that
chameleon.
seat.
I have to defer to
I
these
still don't
guys. I have
trust
no
him.
idea who's going
I
to
still don't trust him.
It's too early to
Okay,
tell.
so just in one word, your pick for the Republican.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
I think it's going to be a governor. I think it's probably, if they get in, it
More
may...
than one word.
Daniels or Perry?
Okay. And,
What do you think, Heather?
I think that it really is up in the air. I mean, Huckabee's still there. Huckabee's still there, and I
Wow.
think Daniels and Plenty have a good chance
Sam?
as well.
Got me. I'll take Mitt Romney, but I don't know who else to pick. So.
That says a lot, by the way. That says a lot.
Heather Sierra,
He used to be
Seton
pro-choice.
Motley.
He used to be
That's
pro-choice.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
We
so
all
he used to
don't know who it is.
Thank you all for being with us.
Our
Thanks a
pleasure.
lot,
Thank
man.
you. Thank you.
It's still unclear what will come of the uprising in Egypt, but there may be something we can take away from these events transpiring halfway around the world. That is that a corrupted and undemocratic institution cannot stay in power forever. It may take years or decades, but eventually, the people will lose faith in their leaders and rise up to demand change. But could this ever happen in America, the birthplace of modern democracy? It's time we ask ourselves this tough question, because our democracy is eroding before our very eyes. Created in 1976, there's a federal program that gives Americans the option to direct some of their tax dollars to publicly financed presidential elections. With publicly financed campaigns, politicians don't have to spend all their time raising money or pandering to special interests with deep pockets. Instead, they can actually focus on talking to the voters. And it levels the playing field among candidates, preventing whomever has the deepest pockets from automatically winning the election. Public financing reduces elections down to what's the most important, the issues and the ideas. That's what democracy is all about, isn't it? The GOP doesn't seem to think so. Yesterday, Republicans in the House voted to get rid of publicly financed presidential elections. They argued that cutting the program could save the government $617 million over the next 10 years. About $60 million a year? That's like walking around, I mean, it's like seconds of the federal budget. Considering that our annual deficit is $1.5 trillion, that's 1,500 billion. That's 1,500,000 million. Republicans are basically saving pennies and at the same time doing considerable harm to our democracy. As Democrats point out, cutting public funding opens the door to even more corporate and special interest money in our electoral system. Aside from just 10 Democrats who supported the deal, this was primarily a party line vote. And that's a problem. The big picture here is that the foundation of how our democracy functions, the administration of our free and fair elections, has become a partisan issue, with Republicans pursuing policies to make elections less free and fair, and Democrats pursuing policies to make elections more free and fair. And the problem is the less free and fair our elections get, the closer our country is to facing something close to what Egypt did. Just this week, Republicans in the Texas state legislature exclusively moved forward a bill that would require Texans to show photo ID to be eligible to vote. Once passed, Texas will have the strictest voting requirements in the country. Somehow it seems tragically fitting that one of the reddest states in our nation is also the hardest to vote in. My mother, who didn't have a driver's license for 30 years, the last 30 years of her life, wouldn't have been allowed to vote in Texas. Yet that's exactly what the Republicans opened the door to this week. And they've been advocating in their unwavering support of the Supreme Court's Citizens United decision last year and their unwavering opposition to the Disclose Act, a bill that simply required corporations to disclose how much money they were spending in elections. That's it. You want to throw $1 million into trying to elect a Republican? Yeah, just fine. Just identify yourself so the voters know where the money's coming from. That was the Disclose Act. It's called transparency. It was knocked down by Republicans in the Senate, and it's something that's also been missing in Egypt for 30 years. The Republicans opposed it because they didn't want to put too much of a burden on their corporate campaign donors. And for the last 2 years, Democrats in the House have been pushing for the Fair Elections Now Act, a bill that would create a genuine publicly financed system for congressional candidates so that members of Congress don't have to spend 5 hours a day, and yes, that's about what many of them do, making phone calls and attending receptions to raise money for the re-election campaigns every 2 years. Republicans criticize members of Congress for not reading legislation. But the truth is, they don't have time to, because they have to be constantly fundraising. I mean, wouldn't we all rather politicians devote their time to speaking with constituents and learning about the issues instead of begging for money or selling their votes? I guess the GOP wouldn't. They have unanimously opposed the Fair Elections Now Act. So here we are watching our democracy erode away just as Egyptians are revolting against their own eroded government. If we don't want the quiet streets of Washington, D.C. to eventually turn into the streets of Cairo, and we have to get the money and corruption out of politics. So let's call our Republican senators and representatives and tell them there's nothing patriotic about selling congressional seats to the highest bidder. Tell them there's nothing democratic about corporations having a right to secretly influence the outcomes of our elections. And tell them there's nothing exceptional about America being run by a rich plutocracy. Let's get the Disclose Act and the Fair Election Now Act passed and put we the people back in charge of determining who represents us in Washington. It's what the Egyptian people are demanding, and it's what we should best know how to do. That's the big picture for tonight. For more information, you can visit our website at thomhartmann.com. You'll find blogs, you'll find clips from the show. Also, we've got a presence over at youtube.com/thebigpictureRT. And don't forget, democracy begins with you. It begins when you get active and you show up. Tag, you're it. Get out there and get active. We'll see you tomorrow.